Well, hi there, and welcome to Jump to It here on IrishRacing.com. It very much feels like the calm before the storm, doesn't it? Royal Ascot is on the horizon. Nonetheless, we've got lots of competitive action to get stuck into this weekend. Not your usual group race affair. Nonetheless, as I said, there is some value to be had. Of course, I'd like to bring in Stephen Harris, as always, to the team. We don't have Vincent again this week. He's topping up on sangria and topping up his tan as well. He will be back for the Royal Ascot Spectacular. But as I said, Stephen, that great 5 days of racing is not far away at all now. Any particular races, horses, matchups, jockeys, anything in particular you are looking forward to next week?
Yeah, it's a brilliant week of racing. Had a real opportunity for punters, a bit like the Cheltenham Festival, really. Bookmakers puff their chests out and pull their shoulders back, and you can get on at the Royal Meeting, and they bet very competitively in the morning at least. Lots of special offers if you've got those kind of accounts. I think we're going to have fast grounded, aren't we? I don't know what it's like up in Cheltenham, but down here it's pretty hot and sunny, and the forecast looks sort of 22 and sunny for about the next fortnight. So I should think Royal Ascot, they'll probably start on good to firm, goodish ground, but they're bound to be getting faster and faster through the week. I wouldn't be at all surprised if they didn't start watering.
Well, there's a good point you raised actually there because I'm all for just let the ground be, and I quite
Mm.
love good to firm ground at Royal Ascot. However, in regards to spectacles, it could ruin a couple of the absolute mega clashes, couldn't we? Because Alan King's
Mm.
reiterated, Trushan, of course, was pulled out last year Royal Ascot on account of the ground being too fast. If the word firm is floating around by Thursday, he's unlikely to line up again, which would may leave it open to Stradivarius. We'll come on to that on
Mm.
next week's show. And also the race I really want to see, the Coronation Stakes, where you'd have Homeless Songs, who won the Irish 1000 in the Common Canter against Cachet, our 1000 guineas winner, and the returning unbeaten Inspiral, who's the champion 2-year-old filly,
Mm.
all set to lock horns. Dermot Weld's got on record this morning saying he needs to see some rain around in order for Homeless
Yeah.
Songs, who's about your 6-4 market leader, to participate. What are we doing, Stephen? I'm cheering for rain in
Mm.
the height of June.
I don't think we're going to get any. So, I mean,
Yeah.
we could have some big changes. I mean, Homeless Songs looked an absolute superstar in Ireland last time out, and that form's got a major boost with Tuesday, perhaps slightly fortunately winning the Oaks. Of course, I know one you're going to be looking forward to, Ed. You love your jumping. Pied Piper, Gordon Elliott, saying he's
Mm.
definitely sending this one over, and he will love quick ground. I think he's a real glider with a turn of foot, relatively speaking, for a stayer. He's a fascinating runner. A race I'm really looking forward to, the King's Stand. I love that race
Mm.
every year, and I think there's a big price lurker in there. Twilight Calls of Henry Candy, who's a real strong traveller. Again, I think on really quickish ground, you might see him improving up to that level. But no, it's going to be a brilliant 5 days. As you say, it's with the flat and with Royal Ascot, it's all a lot more instant than Cheltenham. Cheltenham, we
Mm.
bore each other for 6 months, don't we? About
Well,
what
I
we
do, yeah.
fancy, what we're going to back. With Royal Ascot, you don't actually know what's going to run till
Yeah.
48 hours before. There's lots in the air. There's not really any markets formed. I know all the bookmakers have got prices up, but a lot of it's mythical. There's not really any money changed hands, so it'll be absolutely fascinating. As you said about that big race with Homeless Songs, there's a couple of doubts in there about the front of the market, whether they'll even run. So lots to look forward to, and lots of things can happen in the next few days.
Absolutely. As I said, next week we're actually going to be doing 3 shows for Royal Ascot next week. So we'll have a lot more on those assignments, all those mega clashes. Keep your eyes peeled to irishracing.com throughout the course of next week. Back to more media affairs. I think we'll crack on with the action, shall we, Stephen? It's now time for the upcoming races. We have York, Sandown, and Chester. 8 terrestrial television races we're going to be focusing on here for our best bets and previews on the weekend. Without further ado, we'll crack on at the Knavesmire, I think it's fair to say. And we will head to the 2 o'clock, which is the Queen Mother's Cup. This is a handicap for female amateur jockeys. Over a couple of yards shy of 12 furlongs. Looks fairly wide open on paper to me. This one, Stephen, do you have any insight into this contest?
It's not got the most punter-friendly shape, Ed, has it? I would imagine things will be drying out at York as well. pretty quick ground. I thought that King of the Midlands was the most interesting runner of Andrew Balding. He's had 9 winners in the last 14 days. They're all absolutely flying. He was very well backed for his handicap seasonal debut at Goodwood 8 days ago. And if you watch that run back, it was a very strange race. He virtually bolted for the first mile of it and eventually got reeled in. But I could see him take an awful lot of catching at York. It's a flat track. If you can front run and breeze along and settle, Miss Molly Landau, I wouldn't be a world expert on her riding skills. I don't think I've ever seen her ride, to be truthful. But hopefully Andrew Balding, who's got loads of lovely young jockeys in his stable this season, I should think she'll be very capable. Hopefully be a bit more settled and maybe make all the running. But, 13 runner, amateur riders, handicap at York, it's not got the most punter-friendly shape to it, to put it politely.
Oh, it could be tricky. You're quite right. But as you say, if you want an individual to get on with things, fast ground on the Knavesmire is the kind of place you want to be, isn't it? And yeah, Kings of the Midlands, unexposed 4-year-old Andrew Balding team. Yeah, I'll probably on balance be with you there, Stephen. But yeah, probably a race I'm happy to sit on the fence with. On to the 235. This is 7-furlong handicap. The 9 runners here, a pretty decent race this in terms of ratings as well. Some classy sorts, or bordering group class contest in many shape or form here with a few of these. Boardman has been the horse on the up, arrives here on a hat trick, of course, as the course and distance form in the book. Are you with the likely market leader here, Stephen? Or are you looking elsewhere?
I thought he was pretty solid. The one I liked here, Ed, was Lion Tower. Grant Tour, a trainer who's only got a handful of horses, but he does really well with them. He's had 2 winners in the last 14 days, so they're going well. Lion Tower, York's one of those places, I think we always say this, that horses for courses, that if you run well at York, you tend to run well there again. And by the same token, if you fall out the back of the television at York, the run can usually be discarded. Often on soft ground, they end up getting beaten miles here for some reason if they don't handle the conditions, and you can almost pretend that you haven't seen it really and ignore it back at a normal track next time round. But Lion Tower's run 2 screamers at York in huge fields. Now he has inched up the weights as a result of not winning, which a lot of people get put off by. I know the algorithms and the robots who generate prices to go into the exchanges often oppose these sort of horses that have been running well without winning and they're now a few pounds higher. But Lion Tower seems pretty bomb-proof, yards in form, drying ground will suit, smaller field, slightly calmer waters here. He's bound to run well, I should think.
Yeah, interesting. I, on generally speaking, be taking on Bournemouth as well. Nothing against the horse, just up to marker 99 now. A 6-year-old has a lot on his plate. Tentative selection, I thought Chalet or Chalet. I don't quite know. I think Chalet should have 1 L, shouldn't it? Anyway, pedantic nature there. Chalet for Michael Dodson, Connor Beasley. Again, another individual absolutely loves the Knavesmire. In fact, has never finished out of the win or the winner's enclosure or the placing enclosure, if you like, on 4 visits. 2 wins, 2 places. Loves quick ground, loves the Knavesmire. The Michael Dodds team in good form. So a couple of value picks there to take on the lightly warm favourite Boardman. As we said, has been kind of really going through the gears for the Tim Easterby team. And does come into this encounter on a hat trick. On to the 305 is the Sky Bet Race to the Ebor Grand Cup Stakes. Obviously a listed contest on your cards here, a couple of yards shy of the mile 6, as you would expect. Classy lineup. I always find with these types of races, Stephen, like I got to be careful. I don't want any solicitors and any libel specialists getting on the back of me here. But are all these horses going to be trying, in the sense that if you want to get yourself to the Ebor, you probably don't want to go and win a listed race by half the track and smoke your mark into oblivion with August in mind. So it could be a little bit of cat and mouse here. Nonetheless, that's just my subjectivity. There's lots of interesting types here. Kamari, obviously, a very good horse for Will Buick and Charlie Appleby. Your 5-2 market leader. Mandu vying for favouritism for Brian Meehan. Sean Levy without a fight. For the Crisford team, 3s, Yukon Glen, 6s, you go with 7s, John Leaper, a much bigger price, 1 smooth operator. A classy lineup here, Stephen. How do you kind of sum this one up?
This looked really trappy, Ed, and I think they'd be mortified to only get 6 runners as well. I didn't fancy Yukon Glen. He's beaten the Ambulance twice so far this season, and I think the ground's probably quickened away from him. He's got loads to prove now, age 9. Doesn't look as good as he was. I should think he'll be much bigger than 6-1. I thought Without a Fight was a shade overpriced. He's one of those horses who went to Maidan, didn't run to his best, and when he came back to Newbury over a mile 4 28 days ago, they front run with him, and he got tired over a furlong out. He was slightly below par, but sometimes when they go to Maidan, they take a run or two to get themselves back played in. Simon and Ed Chris for the stable I really like. I can just see him getting a much more patient ride, and York suiting him. He was a prolific winner last season. He's got a touch of class. He'd be a token selection. I do think he's overpriced 6 or 7 to 1, especially in relation to Yukon Glen. But it's a very trappy race. I mean, I suppose they might go forward again Without a Fight. There's not an obvious front runner in the race, so it could be a tactical affair.
Yeah, absolutely. It could be a bit boring, I know, but I was concentrating on the top of the market. Mandub just totally unexposed, especially over this trip. I really like the run behind Al Arzi last time out in the context of this. Brian Meehan team, they've had a bit of form in recent times, actually, of the Manson Yard, and I just wondered with drying ground whether Mandub was the one to be with. As you say, a little bit of a disappointed turn. Now, one horse we've got to mention in here is John Leaper, who, of course, if you rewind the clock about 12 months ago, was all the rage at one point for classics. Won a listed race at Newmarket, then went to the Derby as an 8-1 poke. Frankie Dettori got the ride, didn't he, on that? Dropped out the back of the television there. Has been winless since, and it just seems to be, I don't know, is it excuse after excuse? They've tried different trips. They're up to 2 miles last time out. It was a real lacklustre effort.
Mm.
Back down in distance here. Ryan Moore's in the saddle. I mean, where do we stand with John Leaper? He seems to be a horse who seems to just be a little bit, well, I don't know, overbet, I suppose is the phrase,
Well,
doesn't he? His
I think,
reputation is
yeah.
still stuck from that Newmarket race a year ago.
Well, that's the trouble, Ed. Often these horses disappear, don't they, into something of a twilight zone. They're not quite group performers. They're far too far up the handicap to win one of these hot Saturday handicaps. So you sort of end up with these strange sort of trappy listed contests with
Yeah,
small fields that are very unfriendly for punters. And I mean, I think this is one of those areas that we're going to probably bore on about this in shows coming up throughout the rest of the summer about there being far too much racing. But these sort of races that are worth quite a lot of money don't attract big fields. There's no each way betting. I can't imagine they
yeah,
generate a great deal of turnover on a Saturday afternoon, relatively speaking. And you sort of half think, well, surely these sort of races would be better off being handicaps in truth, or
yeah.
even better, not having them at all, perhaps. But yeah, he's been a frustrating horse in the last 12 months, but very hard to place. It's hard to know what you end up doing with them. If you run them in handicaps, they've got nearly top weight and they'll be 33-1 and sort of 80 on the exchanges. Nobody in the world fancies them. And then you run them in these sort of races and they're up against probably classier horses who are in form.
Yeah.
So, yeah, very trappy, very difficult.
Yeah, stuck in no man's land, I think
Yeah.
it's fair to say. But mind you, keep your eye on John Leaper, because if he did slip down the handicap, he would be the type of horse who could, inverted commas, end up looking well treated with the Ebor in mind at the back end of the summer.
Definitely
So
will.
maybe one for the notebook and not necessarily for this race. Right, the final race on the Knaves Mile we're going to be covering is the 340. This is the Pavers Foundation Catherine Memorial Sprint Handicap over the 6 furlongs. Over 50 grand to the winner here. We've got 19 runners going to post. That keeps Stephen Harris happy. Well, all being
Yeah.
well, we don't get 4 nons come out here. But I'm happy to swerve this one. I thought this was too difficult. Ingrator is your 9-2 market leader. With the Fav, or looking for each way value?
I thought, again, we always say this, Ed, every week, 6 places for looking for sure. Firms like Sky Bet, Boyles, perhaps, Bet365, often offer enhanced places on these sort of races. I like Clive Cox's Harry 3 here. Nothing special about him. Typical Clive Cox. Started slowly, most of them needing a run. He's basically run
Yeah.
himself into top form. He was really impressive under a confident ride 28 days ago at Newmarket on fast ground, cutting through the pack, leading late. He has gone up in the weights for that, but neither here nor there. With sprinters, when they're in form, they stay in form, generally speaking. Obviously, luck in running will play a part. Fascinating. I see Ryan Moore's booked for this one. That doesn't happen too often with Clive Cox. I wonder if Ryan's going to start doing a sort of William Buick where he's riding for everybody suddenly, trying to get interested in chasing the championship. But no, I thought Harry 3 was a progressive sprinter with a good strike rate, bound to run well, ground drying out, lots of positives. He is drawn 19, but I never know what to think of the draw at York. A lot of the time, you sort of imagine there's a massive bias, and then halfway through the card, it seems to flip round. So
Yeah.
I should think 19 will be okay. It's more about whether you get any breaks from halfway there in a huge field, isn't it? He's going to be ridden from off the pace. They'll go a million miles an hour. If he sees daylight late, he'll be flashing home. I mean, 6 places. It'd be hard to imagine him not being in the first six at the way he's running at the moment.
Well, as Stephen says, shop around. Yeah, you can kind of get 6 places, 15-2. You can take your 5 places, 4 places, 8-1, whatever floats your boat. But yeah,
Mm.
take on board Stephen's advice there. Shop around, I suppose, is the bottom line for whatever you fancy. Yeah, I'm very happy to sit that one out, Stephen. I thought that was well done with that. That was a tricky old assignment. Right, we'll switch down to the Isha venue now. Not a million miles away from your house, I believe, Stephen. As you said, the sun's out. The ground's going to be getting
Mm.
quicker and quicker, I would imagine, which is going to play a key part here because they had a lot of rain earlier in the week, which I think turned it good to soft. But as you say, temperatures due up to 21 throughout Friday and Saturday. So I think we'll be looking at something at the time of recording. We're good to soft, good in places. I think we'll be looking at something substantially quicker by the time they go to post. So the 140 is a 1 mile, 1 furlong handicap here, 10 going to post. Maplewood and Aldahir, maybe. I don't know how you pronounce that one. Either way,
Mm.
those two are vying for favouritism. You think this is one towards the top of the market? I think there could be an upset in here.
I thought this was really competitive, but I did like Rudimental of Hugo Palmer. Hugo Palmer, not a trainer, I must admit, I was the greatest fan of, but he's taken over from Tom Dascombe, and suddenly they've all improved about half a stone or more for the new trainer being in charge. He's had 7 winners in the last 14 days. Rudimental landed quite a nice touch first time out at Redcar, was then put up the weights, well backed again at Doncaster. Perhaps Ross Coakley overdid things on the front at Doncaster, and he weakened out of things late. Sandown on fast ground. I quite like a front runner here. They can get up against that far rail and keep pulling it out. And the icing on the cake is Harry Davis, who's a young jockey, very much one for Jump To It listeners to follow over the next few months. He's got his £5 claim. That'll be gone in about another 3 or 4
Yep.
weeks. The way he's going, he's riding for a lot of different trainers. Hugo Palmer's obviously spotted him. I think he takes off 5, which will be very valuable for Rudimental, who looks like about a 10-1 chance, which, you know, I don't mind forgiving horses a run at Doncaster, generally speaking, and he could bounce back. He's upwardly mobile. There should be more to come. He's only had a handful of runs. He'll love the fast ground. He could take a bit of catching. There's not loads of obvious other front runners in the race.
Yeah, it's a good point you make, and especially regarding Harry Davis. It was a bit of a debate I was having on telly the other day. Who's going to lose their £5 claim first, Harry Davis or Benoit de la Sayette? They're the two absolute go-to jockeys at the moment in the weighing room, aren't they? Both.
Definitely.
I think, if I'm right in thinking, the last 2 champion pony riders as well, or 2 of the last 3, they've ridden winners round Cheltenham. It has to be said on the pony. So, yeah, 2
these
absolute,
ponies,
terrific jockeys.
These pony circuits are amazing, Ed. I think I've told a story before. I went to a point, it must be over 10 years ago now, and there was a pony race before while we were sort of cracking on with the sandwiches. Hard to believe, I know. And the Bowen boys were riding in this point the other side of Guildford. You know, come down from Wales.
Yeah.
I think, you know, they do bet on these races, and there was money for both of them. They finished about 300 yards clear. But the boy who won it, I think Sean beat James, or the other way round. But they both sort of look like young Leicester Pigots, and an absolute brilliant sort of training ground. You know, all the other amateurs are flapping around out the back, and these 2 Welsh lads were absolutely rock hard. You know, low in the saddle, driving them out 25 lengths clear of the rest. So I think Lasea and Harry Davis have both come from that route, as you say, and they're. I mean, looking forward to Royal Ascot, Ed, of course. They're both worth looking out for in the handicaps because they'll be able to take off the full claim, and they'll be on some right live outsiders and fancied horses in these handicaps, and because they're not particularly known to the sort of racing away from the racing world, they can be sort of overpriced, definitely in the early markets anyway.
Yeah, I totally agree. I think Mr. Sayet's and Davis's agents' phones will be absolutely smoking if they're not already doing so to get booked on there. You just can imagine the fight to get those 2 jockeys onto something in the Wokingham or the Hunt Cup or something. You could see it now. Anyway, yeah, as we say, two young jockeys there, very bright future. But Harry Davis is riding. Stephen's picked there, Rudimental for the Hugo Palmer team. I was with V Sight here for Rafe Beckett, Sylvester de Souza, closely related to the very useful and classy Scope, who's in the yard, of course. And this individual's on handicap debut, but crucially upped in trip for the first time. Was making late gains over 7 when last seen at Newmarket at the back end of that one's 2-year-old campaign. Up 2 furlongs for handicap debut today. Just looks a proper galloper to me, and I do think this step up in trip will suit. On to the 2:15. 1 mile handicap action here. 10 runners due to go to post. Again, a pretty wide open contest if the market is anything to go by. Encouraged is the one who is the market leader for Fanshawe, James Fanshawe and Sylvester de Souza. Arrives here on a hat trick, but does have more on his plate in this company.
Yeah, I thought he was probably worthy favourite, open to a bit more improvement than some of these. The one I thought was a shade overpriced, he was double figures when I was doing my form for the race, was Via Serendipity of Charlie Fellows. Now, he's old, this one.
Mm.
He's fully exposed, 10 career wins from 48 start, needs fast ground. He's not been seen to best effect either run so far this season. He's eased a few pounds as a result of it. He probably needed it in April at Newmarket when 8th of 10. And last time at Windsor, a small field was no use to him. He was ridden off the back and never really made any impression. But he has become better treated as a result of that. He should now be 100% fit. Charlie Fellows, 3 winners in the last week. The boys on Davis, we've mentioned him. That's another big plus, taking off £5. And fast ground, absolutely ideal. He was a fast ground winner at Windsor last season from a few pounds higher, but he should be coming to the ball. He's a course and distance winner at Sandown. So there's lots of positives at around 10 to 1.
Yeah, via serendipity for Stephen. Yeah, won this race back in 2018. And as you say, looks to be on a competitive mark here with Harry Davis claiming the £5. On to the 250, the Scurry Stakes listed contest here over the flying 5. Ed Dunlop, his quote famously said, if you're drawn in the outside here, you might as well be in the car park, or you might as well declare yourself a non-runner. Do you share that view? Are we still getting all tying our headed knots over the draw on the sprint course at Sandown, Stephen? I suppose that's one question. And then secondly, who would be your selection for this race?
I think you, generally speaking, want to be drawn low, particularly on
Yeah.
fast ground, though in a small field, whether it's massive is another matter. I thought Couture was one of the best bets of the weekend, but I was looking at nearly 2 to 1 when I was doing the form, and he has shortened up a bit. He's only about 11 to 8 for looking now, looking at the exchanges. I think you'd want at least 6 to 4, but he's got everything in his favour. He ran an absolute screamer first time out, sent over to France, and then last time in the Sandy Lane at Haydock in Group 2 company, I thought he was an unlucky loser. He certainly saw no daylight at the wrong time from halfway and finished with loads of running left in the tank behind El Caballo. He's coming right. Clive Cox has hit form, as we've touched on already. Fast ground's what he needs. He's got a good draw. He's well down in class. Kirby's booked. He looks a really solid bet to me. I think he might be a class above these roads. I'm actually hoping that Kirby keeps it simple, pops him out, gets that far rail and makes all the running. He won't be stopping. He stays 6, so this stiff 5 should be absolutely ideal.
Yeah, you're spot on there. I mean, 11 to 10 best price now, Couture on the high street, well backed. Yeah, as you say, the class act in here has stacks in hand on official ratings. However, just to complicate things, does have to carry a Group 2 penalty in this listed event, so has to give away. But as you say, stall 2, ground should be fine, yard going well. Couture, I think on balance, yeah, I could understand why that 2 to 1 disappeared very quickly, shall we say. Yeah, I'd be with you as well. On Couture, that is Sandown done and dusted. Just the one race up on the Rudy. After the 3:20 at Chester, the extended 7 furlongs in play here for this extra places Betway handicap, £51,540 to the winner. Just the 14 going to post though, Stephen, just to tie your brain in knots for this one. But Thunder Legend, your 9 to 2 market leader. What do you make of that one's claims? Got a nice draw there in stall 3.
Yeah, the draw obviously massive at Chester. Low numbers, only really concerned on decent ground. It's almost impossible to get into these races if you're drawn in double figures. Of course, Ed, Chester's been in the news for a number of bad reasons of late. Horses slipping up on the watered turf, and the fact they're sort of charging 50 quid to get in. So there's been lots and lots of moaning. They'll be hoping for a dry, sunny Saturday, quickening up ground, and a full house of racegoers to sort of make those memories of the last meeting there fade
Drama
away.
free,
I
yeah.
thought
Yeah,
drama free. Yeah, I mean,
yeah.
it does feel like one of those. I know a few on-course bookmakers from the old days, and they've been moaning about Chester. It costs them a fortune to go and bet there, and there's not a soul there. And you've got the old Chester bet pitches being put in front of the racecourse tote, basically, being put in front of where they've already paid sort of hundreds of thousands to get their own pitches. So there's lots going on at Chester, and it's not all good. But in this particular race, a difficult race, I thought Woderton. Progressing nicely for Andrew Balding, like all of his horses, until he went to Goodwood last time out and sunk in the Goodwood swamp. You forget that run. He's still shaped as though in top form, pulling hard for 90% of the race and then stopping a furlong out on ground that didn't suit him. Back on fast ground, stall 5. He ran a blinder first time out. I think he's bound to run well. But again, it hasn't got a wonderful shape for punters. But that being said, if you just concentrate on those sort of drawn 7 and below, you can narrow these races down. Perhaps it's not quite as competitive as it looks.
Yeah, Woderton for Stephen. 14 to 1 there, your bottom
Yeah.
weight. Interesting runner, as Stephen says. Back on ground that should be riding significantly quicker than what he encountered at Goodwood last time out. I was with the top weight here, Outgate, again, just for that idiosyncrasies of Chester. This horse looked really happy here when winning on his penultimate start. There was a bit of cut in the ground that day. I think there's a bit of soft in the ground there. So if there is a bit of juice underfoot still by the time they go to post, won't be a problem. Over a mile last time at Haydock in a good race. Was just slightly worried out of it. But back to Chester, that's a big tick in the box. And of course, we talked about the draw. Well, it's got the one of the plum draws there in stall 2. Rich Kingscote, who literally is riding at the top of his game at the moment in the saddle as well. So I thought Outgate, it's 7 to 1 would do for me. So that pretty much wraps up our previews of the weekend action. Now I'm going to nail Stephen's colours to the mast. Let's get our tips of the week. Well, Stephen's been in great form recently. This is not the easiest of weekends to try and decipher, I suppose, Stephen. But nonetheless, where are we going for your best bets of the weekend?
Yeah, the betting expert nap of the weekend's in the 250 at Sandown, the big Scurry sprint, Couture of Clive Cox, yard flying, fast ground come right. Very unlucky at Haydock in a better race. Got a good draw. Stall 2, Adam Kirby, make all the running. The only negative is, I would repeat myself about this, I would want at least 6 to 4. I don't think you get any thrill taking any less than that. But Couture should be a class above these. And staying at Sandown 35 minutes earlier in the 215, a competitive handicap, but Via Serendipity's become really well handicapped, eased a few pounds, got fast ground, got the boy Davies on. Charlie Feller's had a couple of winners in the last week, so they're going well. Should be peaking now, our third run of the season, and at 10 to 1 should reward each way support.
Yeah, absolutely. The each way pick there for Stephen for the winner from 4 years ago. I've gone 2 selections as well for this weekend. I was kind of, how should we say, powder dry a little bit with Ascot on the horizon. I thought this is pretty trappy, but in the 140, V-Sight for Rafe Beckett on handicap debut, up in trip, well bred. This horse, I think in time will be getting middle distances, absolutely no problem at all. But from stepping up from 7 to 9 furlongs, there's got to be a positive for that unexposed sort. And then the one we touched upon just now at Chester in the 320, the big handicap there. We've got the Kubler team with Outgate with Richard Kingscote in the saddle. Got a lovely draw in stall 2. Has been there and done it at Chester. The ground should be absolutely spot on. Well, but that concludes our tips as well. Best of luck with whatever you're on. Stephen, as you said, down the tailors, you get your top hat and tails all measured up, or you're cleaning a barbecue. What's in store in the Stephen Harris household this weekend?
I think it's a really boring one, Ed, actually. It's mainly looking Royal Ascot prep because we're on air sort of more than Matt Chapman, aren't we, next week with Jump to It Extravaganza. And we've got Vincent back, thank goodness, to help us.
Yeah.
I've been very worried about who's looking after his dog. He's on his 7th holiday of the year over in Valencia, and I'm worried about his arthritic dog. But hopefully all will be well and he'll be back with us on Monday to spin through. And there must be quite a few Irish runners all entered up that he'll be providing his insight next week. But it's a real
Yeah,
tough. There's lots to take on board with Royal Ascot, isn't there? You've got runners Ireland, France, America. Wesley Ward's bringing the best horse he's ever had over Golden Pal.
yeah,
There's all
yeah.
sorts of things going into the melting pot. So yeah, it's going to be a busy, busy week.
There is. There's a load of showbiz with Ascot, isn't there? As you say, it's not like Cheltenham
Mm,
where me especially, I'll bore everyone to the cows come home 5 months in advance talking about per temps final plots. With Ascot, it's almost spontaneity, isn't it? It just suddenly
mm.
appears. You've got a field of 20 runners in front of you, as you say, from all parts of the globe, and right, pick the winner. So that's all part of the excitement, I suppose, with Royal Ascot. Yeah, we will have Vincent back, all being well, next week. If he can get through the airports and all the carnage at the moment. But yeah, he'll have a full tan. He's currently lying on a beach studying up the Wokingham as we speak. So we look forward to having Vincent back. But of course, my thanks to you, Stephen, for joining us here on Jump to It. Thank you for watching at home. And of course, don't forget to check out all the latest news and the features on irishracing.com and all of Stephen's tips on bettingexpert.com as well. As we've been harping on about, there are 3 Royal Ascot shows next week, kicking off on Monday. Get ready, get your selections. We'll see you again soon. Bye for now.